Can you hear me? There you go. Yes, I can write and do communications, but technology is not my thing. So I am very glad that we have Dennis here. I'm going to take you through a quick update and just give you some information, let you know where we're at on the checkoff, what we've done to date. And then I also have some news that I'm going to share with you on the results of our referendum. Just to start out really quickly, and I did share these with Bill Knutson, so you've seen some of these numbers. When we look at our state, what is the importance of wheat? Just to kind of give you an idea of where we're at. When we look at the national market, we do rank about 8th when we look at wheat production. And he talked a little bit about the changes over the last 20 years, looking at some of the changes from the white wheat production to the red wheat production, and really looking at the red wheat really being that leader. Certainly when we look at numbers and we look at that production ratio. When we look at production, some really unique numbers, I think, and some advantages that we have here in our state. So when we think about why do we need the organization, what do we need to look at for moving things forward, if we look at us, non-irrigated, just regularly grown wheat, our state average is 81 bushels per acre. If we look nationally, the average is usually about 45 to 47. So huge opportunities when we look at the inputs that we have, when we look at the climate that we have, there are some neat opportunities for us as far as wheat. Another one of those opportunities is definitely, and you can see a lot of them here, the support that we have, the milling industry, the end users that we have, both in Michigan and in the Great Lakes region. You know, a lot of commodities are looking at what do we do with the crop, how do we move that crop, where do we market that crop, and we have some really neat opportunities here when we look at all those end users and all those millers. So it really makes sense to look at an organization that is really looking out for the state's wheat producers. As we look at the history, I think you know, summer 2011, the program was voted in by you, the growers. That initial referendum, just over 1,300 voted, and 54% of the popular vote voted to support the program, and 54% of the production voted to support the program. So the wheat program was up and started. If you looked 10 years previously, there was also a movement to start a wheat checkoff program, and that did not pass by 54%. So in 10 years, things changed. I think we saw some of the opportunities that had arisen from some of the other checkoff programs, and really saw that we needed to put some funds towards wheat, really focus on wheat, and see what we could do. As I mentioned, the summer of 2011, the program was voted in. The board was appointed by the governor in November, and then in December, that board met for the first time. Having had a very commodity-focused life, I have to tell you, if you are on the wheat board, you work pretty hard and you go to lots of meetings. The board meets almost every single month. Sometimes we do let them take off in April or May, and sometimes they do get to take off in October. But otherwise, every month we get together. They receive all their information electronically, so when we get to the board meeting, all the homework is done, they're set, they're ready to go, and we pretty much tackle the issues of the day. So a very, very hard-working group trying to move things forward and make sure we get the program up and running. As we look at the program, things moved pretty quickly. Staff began in March, which was me. I'm pretty grateful for that. And then in May of 2012, assessment collection began. And I have to say, when we were in the referendum, I did get a few phone calls, so I want to make sure you do understand. When we do the assessment, the rate is half of 1%, or 0.5% of the value. So if you have a $5 bushel, it's the easiest way for me to figure it out and a pretty easy way to remember. If you look at that at your 5%, it's about 2.5 cents when you're looking at your bushel. And then we also assess seed wheat, and that price for that seed wheat is set annually by the board based on a formula looking at several months of the Chicago Board of Trade price. So it's all set, it's all in our policies, but all this goes behind when we look at the referendum process, when we've looked at what the growers need for programs, that's what we're looking at as far as the checkoff side. As we moved ahead, still very early in the program, August of 2012, the board funded its first research. and they really looked at things very differently. We went to Michigan State University. We used the conference room. We had a meeting, and we sent out a call. Anybody that's interested in doing wheat research, anyone that has done wheat research, or anyone that has an idea for wheat research should come to our board meeting. So we got together with a lot of researchers who really already had full agendas and had some interest in doing wheat. And by the time the day was done, we had funded about 5 to 6 projects, looking at what we could do, how we could move things ahead, and most importantly, what had to happen to get wheat planted yet that fall so we could do even more research the next spring. So things moved around pretty quickly. 2013, we were able to start some of the grower communications. 2014, we got pulled into the consumer arena. And then 2015, we had our research results. And then you can see January 2016, we are very excited to be able to announce that our continuation referendum did pass. We had just over 1,000 ballots that were valid, and the popular vote to support the checkoff was 80%, and of the production voted, it was 81%. So I would say on behalf of myself and the board, many of you in ag business, I see Bob Bain from Farm Bureau, they've been a huge supporter. We just want to thank you, the growers, for standing behind us as we got the program up and got things started. And truly, when I began, I was given 9 pages stapled together, and that was all we had. We had no phone number, we had no address, we really had nothing. So we appreciate all your help, all your support, and all your faith as we've really tried to pull this together, find some direction, and really look at what you need and what we can do to help you. So with that, I also want to take a minute and have the board stand up, because these are the folks that, come on board, come on wheat board, you guys got to stand up. These are the guys that have been there and really made things happen, and I think we owe them a big round of applause. Dave's smiling at me. He didn't know I was going to do that. As we look to the future, certainly we have a lot of excitement as we look upon the next 5 years. One of the ways you can get involved if you're a grower, we do have a 9-member board, and each year 3 of those positions are up. So if you find that you are in districts 3, 6, or 8, and you do have an interest in serving on the board, please either touch base with one of the board members or get a hold of me, and I will get you the paperwork that you need. But we need to, by the end of this month, have our paperwork ready to go into the governor's office for appointments. So we want to make sure that you are aware of that opportunity. If you serve on the board, this is our mission. You've seen it in several different places. I'm not going to walk you through, but we're really just trying to look at the industry as a whole and making sure that it works for you as growers, it works financially, it works when we look at the crop rotations, and that we have an opportunity to really be able to focus when we're looking at wheat. Where we really started was research. We started with a strategic plan, especially as you get together and the job seemed pretty overwhelming. So we developed a strategic plan. You can see the areas that we were really focused, and we've really looked a lot at research. And not only did we have the plan, but the board has also put the money where the plan is. About 65% of the budget is spent on research. So definitely where our focus is, and definitely where we're trying to make some advances. Dr. Hooker did a great job walking you through some of the things that they've been able to do, and we feel there's lots of opportunities for us to be able to step up and do some more research here in state. If you look also, events is one of our expenditures. It's this event and our summer field day, and then you can see some of the others on with communications and also sponsorship membership. Our big focus definitely being research. If you take a look at research, of the funds that we have spent on research, about 22% of that, or about a quarter of that, has gone into breeding and genetics. And we have been very excited, and Dennis mentioned Eric Olson, our new wheat breeder. We were able to be part of that search. We were able to partner with Crop Improvement, several of the millers, and able to put funds in to be able to help fund that position, gear Eric up, and get him going. We also have looked a lot at disease. We know that is a huge issue for production. So about 16% of the funding for research has ended up in that category of disease. Nutrient management, another very, very important area. Many of the topics that we've already talked about today, you can see the list of all the different projects that fall into that category, but again, about 16% of your research budget. And then we've also looked at processing and quality, and that's been about 16% of the budget. One of the things that I can say about the wheat industry and the milling industry, and we look at the end users, it is a very nice, very friendly, very open industry. And I'm looking around at some of the millers that we have in the room, and it's been great to have doors opened. We have the opportunity to sit at the table, talk about what we need, but then also talk about, as millers, what do they need? And how can we do things together and make sure that you guys have some great varieties in the pipeline, but also make sure that you can mill those and you can be able to work with those in the future on the end user side and the processor side. Also, when you look at research, health, I know several of us hear a lot about gluten-free and allergenicity issues, so we've spent about 8% looking at some of those issues. Looks like there may be some unique traits when we look at wheat, so we have some research going on there, looking at the health aspects, and also looking at cover crops. We know how important those are, and then looking at the high management. So lots of things coming on the horizon, and everything else, if you take that together, that's about 12%. One of the programs I do want to mention that we are going to continue is diagnostics. So Dennis and Martin Nagelkirk are very involved in this. If, as spring comes along, if you get out there in the fields and something just doesn't look right, visit our website, miwheat.org, or you can visit the booth back there, or in your packets, there are handouts for diagnostics for MSU. If you dig that up, it will give you directions on what you need to do. Submit that to MSU. The checkoff will pay to have an analysis done of that. And then you'll know if it's nutrient deficiency, you'll know if it's a pest problem, you'll know if you have a disease issue. And Dennis and Martin are working with Jan Byrne at MSU that does that. And our goal is to turn that around even faster than we have done it in the past and get you information. So if you have a nutrient deficiency, you need to know within a couple days so you can turn around and get right back out there in the field. So please take advantage of that. We don't get specifics on anyone's business or what you're doing. At the end of the season, we get an overall report. So we can look to see what issues are out there and do we have research that's addressing those issues. When we look at support, certainly research is very important, but also it's people. You know, we got up, we got started, we're a very small staff, we're trying to move projects around and trying to keep things moving. To date, the board has funded over 50 research projects, just a little over $1.1 million. And as we look at that, and as we look at moving ahead and what do we do in this next 5 years, one of the areas identified by the board was boots on the ground. We need to have more people out there, we need to be focused on wheat, and we need to be looking out for wheat. So we are lucky and excited that we are able to financially support Martin Nagelkirk with MSU Extension. We've been able to support Eric Olson, and you met Dennis earlier, the newest addition to the team. So we are very excited as we look to the future to really see what can we do, how can we help you as growers, and make sure you keep those communications lines open. And that's pretty easy to do. This is how to get a hold of me. But if you have problems, if you have issues, if you have questions, I've already gotten one suggestion today for speakers for next year. Let us know because we want to make sure that we're getting you back the information that you need. So with that, that's a pretty quick overview of really what we've done the last 4 or 5 years, but wanted to make sure you understood where we were at, what we focused on, and definitely where we're at for research. If you look in your packets, you do have our annual report for this year, and if you look up here in our booth, we do have the annual report for last year, and there's a synopsis on each one of the research projects that's been funded. So we want to make sure you're aware and you can take advantage. So with that, no board members are telling me I forgot anything, so I think I've covered the bases pretty quickly, and if you have any questions, I can answer those. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to Dave. Good.